everyone, welcome at this second video on HR and operations. My name is Babbage, and in this video I will talk you through the model of work behavior, and we will go through the development of job design over time. If we look at the model of work behavior, we see that the work behavior of the individual is determined by his or her work situation and their individual characteristics. With regards to the work situation, you can think about someone's tasks, their materials, the workplace environment, and the contacts he or she has at work. Individual characteristics consist of stable characteristics, such as intelligence or physical aspects. Well, stable as in an employer can't really change the physical aspects. The person themselves can, of course, fracture something. But there are also changeable aspects for the individual, such as their motivation and their skills. The work behavior of a person, in turn, influences certain organizational outcomes. So you can think about customer satisfaction or sickness absence rates. It also influences the individual outcomes, such as job satisfaction or productivity. When the organization or the HR department has a feeling that something is not really going well in either the organizational outcomes or the individual outcomes, or maybe both, they could think about what they can change in the work situation of the person or the individual characteristics, which in turn may influence their work behavior. Let's take a look at an example. We're going to take a look at working time arrangements. You can imagine that if you work in an industry that is open 24 hours a day, you possibly need to work in shifts. You may remember this from a side job, where you had to work the morning, the afternoon, evening, or maybe even the night shift. The question is, how does shift work have an effect on organizational and individual outcomes? People that work in shifts often experience a disruption in their circadian rhythm. Every individual person has a circadian rhythm. This is actually the body's natural body clock that responds to certain environmental cues, such as light or temperature. As you can see, is that at 10 o'clock in the morning, people have their highest alertness, and at night, their melatonin secretion starts. This is actually what makes you tired at night. Now you can imagine that if you have to work the night shift, your whole eating and sleeping pattern runs amok, making it very difficult for the body to adjust again. And this is also why, over the long run, we see that shift workers experience more cardiovascular diseases, but also obesity, as they have difficulties having a healthy eating pattern, as well as they often show symptoms of depression, as their circadian rhythm constantly needs to adjust to those different shifts. Now, as an HR department, you need to think about what can we actually change about these working time arrangements, which in turn may diminish the negative effects on the organizational and the individual outcomes. You could, for example, think about the number of days before switching to another shift. We know that it takes at least 7 days for the circadian rhythm to adjust. So you may think about 5 to 7 consecutive nights of working a certain shift. Furthermore, we see that forward shift work is recommended. So that means that you have first the day shift, then the afternoon shift, and then the night shift, instead of having the night shift, then the afternoon shift, and then the morning shift. Because we see that circadian rhythms actually adjust better when we move forward. Furthermore, you need to take into consideration that the early morning shifts don't start too early. So don't let them start before 6 or 7. You can imagine that if someone needs to come by public transport, it's very difficult for them to get there at 5 in the morning. Furthermore, you need to think about the length of the rest. So the rest period between the next shift starts needs to be at least 24 hours. Now, if we talk about changing something in the work situation or changing something about the individual characteristics, looking at, for example, the working time arrangements of a person, this all can be traced back to job design. And this is what we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the 3 key players in job design, which were Smith and Babbage, Frederick Taylor, and Elton Mayo. First of all, Smith and Babbage were mainly focused on mass production. They were the ones that separated individuals by tasks, and they looked at the key skills of the individual, and then they specialized one person for one specific task. For example, you can think about if you would work at an assembly line, you are the one that only put the products into the box, and that was it, that was your task. Then Frederick Taylor took it one step further. He really aimed to look at efficiency by separating acting from thinking. Frederick Taylor was the one that came up with the time motion studies. As he worked as a foreman for the Bethlehem Steel Works in the 1900s, he observed how the workers could actually do more with less time. At the factory, he analyzed the coal shoveling, and he noticed that the workers brought different sized shovels from home. The workers that brought small shovels could actually do more, but it took them longer. The workers who brought big shovels could do less, but it was faster. He observed that the best sized shovel was one weighing about 20 pounds. As a result, he directed the organization to provide all the workers with the same size shovel. He also provided them with pay incentives for the workers that shovel more coal. By making these changes, the organization actually dramatically increased their production. Now you can imagine that these time motion studies really increased the efficiency. However, it also resulted in these dull, monotonous jobs. So it actually also decreased the motivation of the workers. So then Elton Mayo was the one leading the human relations movement with his Hawthorne studies. Elton Mayo conducted an experiment where he increased the light in one factory, whereas no changes were made to the other factory. And you know, the results were actually surprising, because what Elton Mayo found was that actually both of the factories, the workers increased their productivity and their satisfaction. So what he found was that it was not about the light that increased. No, it was about the individual attention by the managers to their employees that they were involved in this experiment. So this is how he found that actually the social attention was just as important for the individuals as paying incentives. And now you may think, well, why do we even talk about this? We don't see this often anymore, right? Actually, this is not really true, because we see that the Taylorism has gone one step further in the so-called gig economy. The gig economy where companies such as Deliveroo and Uber are the main players. Using algorithms to monitor performance is actually associated with companies like Uber. It actually can be traced back to scientific management. Now the term algorithmic management is often used, and we see that those individuals are tracked in such a way that we know exactly how long it would take them to bring food from one door to the other door. If they're not on time, then their job goes to someone else. So actually, Frederick Taylor is by far not gone. The question is though, is this liberating or is this exploitative? What does this do to the individual workers? How does this influence their work behavior? Those are questions you may think about. How would you feel if an algorithm is your boss? Thank you for watching this video. In the next video, I will talk you through the different theories of job design. In the final video, we will capture HR and strategy. So stay tuned.